Today we're breaking down exactly why being a UFC fighter isn't the dream people think it is. And with each point, it's only going to become more obvious just how brutal this job really is. Simply not worth it. The Paycheck Illusion. The financial structure tilts sharply toward the promotion. The UFC retains about 80 to 85% of total revenue, leaving roughly 15 to 20% to be split among the entire roster, a figure dramatically lower than the 50% revenue share seen in the NFL, NBA, or boxing's biggest promotions. The biggest shock for new UFC fighters isn't the punches, it's the pay. The UFC markets itself as the pinnacle of combat sports, with million-dollar stars like McGregor and Pereira front and center. But beneath that elite tier sits a roster where most fighters barely break even. Entry-level contracts typically pay $10,000 to show, $10,000 to win, and the company limits fighters to roughly 3 to 4 bouts per year, assuming they stay healthy. After taxes, management fees, coaching cuts, training camp expenses, and travel, many walk away with less than $5,000 per fight. Some even lose money. Unlike team sports, there's no base salary, no benefits, and no collective bargaining. It's a gig economy in gloves, where each bout is a one-off payday, and the dream job title replaces long-term security. The illusion works because visibility feels like wealth. Fighters believe fame will translate into income until the numbers hit their bank accounts. In truth, the UFC's model doesn't reward success. It rewards survival. You're not getting rich in the octagon. You're just fighting to stay on the payroll. Forever stuck. The contract trap. Signing with the UFC is supposed to mean you've made it, the moment a fighter graduates from the regional circuit to the world stage. But that first contract isn't a reward. It's a surrender of control. On paper, it's a multi-fight deal, but only one side has real power. The UFC can terminate a contract after any loss, or if a fighter underperforms. While the fighter is locked in until every bout is fulfilled, there's no negotiation, no exit clause, no freedom to compete elsewhere. The term exclusive rights sounds professional, but it really means career isolation. Fighters can't sign with other promotions, can't monetize their likeness independently, and can't negotiate sponsorships without UFC approval before the Reebok and Venom deals. Many fighters made more from sponsors than from their actual fight purse. The UFC eliminated that overnight, forcing every athlete into a uniform that pays a flat fee, a branding win for the company, a financial loss for the roster. Even the fine print on likeness rights tells the story. Once you sign, the UFC owns your image, your highlights, and your promotional footage forever. You can retire, fight elsewhere, or disappear entirely, and they'll still control how you appear in their media. The business model is clear. Fighters don't sign with the UFC, they sign to it. The organization owns the spotlight, the narrative, and the brand. The fighter simply rents their own body back for a paycheck. False hope. The Bonus Mirage. Performance bonuses are a long-standing feature of the UFC's pay structure, designed to reward exceptional performances and encourage fighters to compete with energy and aggression. Typically, awards such as Fight of the Night or Performance of the Night grant $50,000 bonuses distributed at the discretion of UFC leadership after each event. While the intent is to incentivize entertainment and effort, the subjective nature of the selection process means outcomes can vary. Bonuses are not tied to rankings or win-loss records, but to how a bout is perceived by the organization and audience. As a result, fighters often adopt higher risk styles to attract attention and improve their chances of earning these discretionary rewards. For lower-tier athletes, a single bonus can significantly influence annual income, creating a strong motivation to prioritize action over caution. This system allows the UFC to encourage excitement-driven competition without formally increasing base pay. From an educational standpoint, it illustrates how variable compensation models in combat sports can shape athlete behavior, promoting fan engagement, but also amplifying the physical risks that come with performance-based incentives. Bruised and battered. The Health Fallacy. The UFC maintains professional health and safety standards, including mandatory medical screenings, on-site physicians, and post-fight evaluations. However, its insurance coverage is event-based, meaning it primarily applies to injuries sustained during official bouts or activities within fight week. Injuries from training, sparring, or long-term physical wear typically fall outside that scope. This structure aligns with most professional combat sports, where athletes are classified as independent contractors rather than employees. Because of that, costs related to rehabilitation, scans, and elective surgeries are usually covered by the fighter, not the promotion. Chronic conditions, such as CTE, arthritis, or ligament damage, are managed individually once a fighter's active contract ends. Currently, there is no pension or long-term medical fund for retired fighters, though active athletes receive comprehensive care during sanctioned events. From a structural standpoint, the UFC ensures acute injury management and regulatory compliance, while long-term health planning remains the responsibility of the individual athlete, a standard arrangement across the combat sports industry. Completely deprived. The weight cuts. Cutting weight isn't technically mandated by the UFC, but the structure of its divisions pushes fighters into it. The gaps between weight classes are so wide that athletes are forced into an impossible choice: either fight heavier opponents and get outsized, or dehydrate themselves to compete at a lighter class. In practice, almost everyone chooses dehydration. A fighter walking around at 205 pounds has to either cut to middleweight at 185 or face light heavyweights who might rehydrate to 230. Those 20 to 30 pound swings are common. and the advantage they create on fight night can be decisive. Fighters like Alex Pereira, who has entered the cage nearly 30 pounds above the official limit, demonstrate how the system rewards extreme cutting, not natural weight maintenance. Physiologically, the toll is severe. Rapid dehydration strips electrolytes, shrinks plasma volume, and reduces the brain's cushioning fluid, making knockouts more likely and recovery slower. The kidneys, heart, and endocrine system all absorb the damage. Yet the UFC benefits from the spectacle. The tense weigh-ins, the last-minute drama, the face-offs that fuel social media, so while no one forces fighters to cut, the system makes it the only rational decision. You either suffer through dehydration or step into the cage against someone who didn't, someone 20 pounds heavier and just as skilled. It's not a rule, it's coercion by design. The UFC didn't invent weight cutting, but its structure ensures it will never stop. Spotlight effect, the fame illusion. Fame in the UFC projects the image of power, status, and influence, but in practice, it's a limited form of visibility rather than lasting celebrity. Fighters can gain millions of views and social media followers overnight, yet outside the MMA world, most remain relatively unknown. Unlike mainstream athletes tied to teams or leagues, UFC fighters don't have year-round exposure. Their fame peaks during fight week and fades quickly afterward. The organization's marketing model amplifies this effect. The brand promotes events and rivalries rather than individual legacies, meaning even top contenders are interchangeable within the narrative. The UFC controls broadcast footage, highlights, and promotional material, so fighters rarely own the content that makes them famous. Once their contract ends, that visibility disappears with it. As a result, UFC fame often functions as borrowed spotlight, powerful but temporary. Only a small number of fighters manage to convert it into independent recognition through personal branding, media presence, or ventures outside the cage. For most, notoriety begins and ends with the walkout music. The crowd remembers the fight, the company owns the moment. Never speak. The silence clause. Like most major sports organizations, the UFC includes confidentiality and conduct clauses in its fighter contracts. These provisions are designed to protect company operations, brand integrity, and sensitive business details. However, in practice, they also shape how fighters communicate publicly about pay, contracts, or internal matters. While fighters are not explicitly prohibited from speaking out, doing so can affect professional relationships and future opportunities within the organization. The UFC, as a privately managed promotion, controls media access, marketing visibility, and fight bookings, all of which influence an athlete's exposure and earning potential. Several fighters have publicly voiced concerns over pay or treatment, often at personal cost. Examples include Ali Akinta, Randy Couture, and Leslie Smith, who each experienced professional pushback after challenging company policies. From a broader perspective, this reflects a standard dynamic in entertainment-based sports. The organization manages the brand narrative, while athletes must balance self-expression with contractual obligations. It highlights the tension between corporate communication control and individual advocacy that exists throughout modern professional sports. A cartel business, the ultimate payoff. The UFC operates as a promotion-first enterprise, meaning its financial structure is built around event profitability and global brand growth, rather than athlete equity sharing. Fighter compensation, while often performance-based, represents a fraction of total operational spending compared to marketing, production, and distribution costs. This system prioritizes sustainability and scalability, ensuring events remain profitable while maintaining a deep roster of talent ready to compete. However, it also creates a competitive environment where most fighters are paid enough to participate consistently, but not enough to disengage from competition. The structure rewards persistence and marketability as much as skill. Economically, it reflects the same principle found in other entertainment industries. The brand holds the leverage, and participants operate within it. Fighters enter for the opportunity, exposure, and potential breakout success, but the financial ecosystem is designed to keep ambition high and replacement always possible. Over time, that balance between opportunity and dependency can work against the athletes themselves. The same system that keeps the machine running also keeps many fighters locked in cycles of financial pressure and physical risk long after the applause fades.